The day I found out was the day I decided to bury them both alive under the weight of every secret they thought I'd never discover. It was 2:13 a.m. when I stood in the doorway, watching Marcus snore, a half-finished bottle of NyQuil on the nightstand, his phone still glowing with the last message she sent. Love you, sugar. Sleep tight. And beneath it? A $300 Zelle transfer. My money. My husband. Sent to my friend. My hands shook as I took screenshots. Not because I was scared, but because I was done. My name is Lauren Mitchell, I'm 34 years old. And this is the story of how I turned a homewrecker's life into her personal nightmare, one she can't wake up from. The soft smile that lied. That's how I think of Tiffany Miles now. You'd never expect a woman like her to be the villain in your life. She's the type you see at the farmer's market, bouncing her toddler on her hip while calling you sis, handing you a lavender candle she made herself, smiling so sweet it hurts your teeth. That's how she was with me. I ran a small organic skincare stand every weekend in Atlanta, and Tiffany's candle booth was 3 stalls down. She'd help me pack up when my adopted daughter, May, would fuss in the stroller, and she'd say, "Sis, go nurse her, I'll handle this for you." We swapped products. We swapped prayers when her rent was overdue. We swapped laughs about how we both couldn't find good men before our current situations. Or so I thought. Because while I was busy trusting Tiffany, she was busy texting my husband things I wasn't even allowed to say to him anymore. There were signs. Marcus suddenly became extra generous. Sending business help to Tiffany when her car broke down. Buying candles from her booth he never brought home. Dropping off donations for her son's school fundraiser without telling me. When Tiffany ghosted me, I assumed she was depressed. I even sent her "miss you, hope you're okay" texts she never replied to. And Marcus? He was too tired, too busy, too quiet. He locked his phone like it held nuclear codes. When I'd ask, "Is everything okay?" he'd pull me close and kiss my forehead, whispering, "You worry too much, babe." But the real inconsistency? My bank account. Small, unexplainable deductions labeled Zelle that Marcus swore were barbershop inventory. I believed him. Until that night, when God himself let that phone stay unlocked. The day before I found out, I was at the supply store when a woman I barely knew tapped my shoulder. She whispered, "Someone wants to replace you. With someone you trust." She wouldn't tell me more. She just walked away, leaving me with a bag of shea butter and a racing heart. That night, Marcus was sick, coughing blood, NyQuil knocked him out, and the phone buzzed. Love you, sugar. Sleep tight. You ate today? Let me sell you something. Tell Jaden I said good luck on his test. Tiffany. She was calling my husband sugar while calling me sis. She was holding my daughter while holding my husband. She was taking my money while laughing in my face. I didn't scream. I didn't confront them. I went cold. I took screenshots of everything. Every payment. Every love you. Every timestamp. And then, I made a plan. I texted Tiffany. "Hey sis, haven't seen you in forever. Let's catch up this weekend." She replied, "Miss you too, sis. Been going through it, but I'd love that." I pretended to care. I sent her customers. Boosted her candle sales. Referred her to a boutique supplier. Helped her design a new logo. I made her think we were close again. While she was distracted, I reported the unauthorized Zelle transfers Marcus made to her during our joint account settlement. It froze her funds the day before rent. Then, I sent anonymous messages to her baby daddy's family about Tiffany's generous sponsor, sparking a custody investigation she wasn't ready for. And Marcus? I filed for legal separation. I exposed every single transaction, every hidden cash deal from his barbershop, every undeclared dollar, to the IRS. Marcus always said, "No one will ever leave me." He didn't know I wasn't leaving quietly, I was leaving with his future in flames. Here's the worst part. I loved Tiffany like a sister. And I loved Marcus like a forever home. I defended him to my friends who told me he was cheating. I defended Tiffany to customers who whispered she was messy. I loved them both. They both betrayed me. When Marcus cried on the kitchen floor, saying, "Please don't do this to me," I remembered how many times I cried alone while he gaslit me for asking who Tiffany was. When Tiffany begged me to unfreeze her funds, saying, "Sis, I'm about to be evicted," I remembered how she once held my daughter while texting my husband under the table. That's when I realized. They didn't just betray me. They underestimated me. Just when I thought I was done, I discovered something even darker. Tiffany wasn't the only one. Marcus had other sisters. Other friends. Other Zelle transfers. Other babies he was checking up on. And Tiffany? She was using Marcus for money, but she was also using him to get back at me. Turns out, she knew Marcus was married. She knew I was the wife. She told her cousin that the wife thinks I'm her friend, but he's mine now. I wasn't just betrayed by them. They were working together to humiliate me. That's when I decided. I wouldn't just leave them. I would own them. I hired a lawyer. Quietly. We found out Marcus had been funneling cash under Tiffany's name to hide it from taxes. We traced every transaction back to her. Now, she's under audit, too. The boutique supplier I referred Tiffany to? My cousin. She pulled the contract when Tiffany missed her payment. Tiffany lost her candle booth. Marcus lost his business license when the IRS flagged his unreported income. I drained our joint account legally during separation proceedings. They thought they were building a life together on my back. I made sure they built a prison instead. Yesterday, Tiffany showed up at my door. Tears. Bruised ego. A trembling lip. "Lauren, please." I didn't know it would go this far. Behind her, Marcus was in the car, watching. I stood there, holding May, looking Tiffany dead in the eye. I said, "You called me sis while texting my husband Sugar. Now, you can call me ma'am." She reached for my hand. I slammed the door. But as I watched them drive off, Marcus sent me a text. "We need to talk. I have something to tell you about Tiffany." And that's when I realized. This isn't over. Because there's something even darker about Tiffany that I never saw coming. And if you think the revenge ended here, you haven't seen what I'll do when I find out the next secret they've been hiding. Marcus's text came in just as Tiffany's car pulled away. "We need to talk. I have something to tell you about Tiffany." At first, I ignored it. I was done letting him speak circles around me, done listening to fake apologies. But that message kept replaying in my mind as I tried to rock May to sleep that night. I finally called him, and he answered on the first ring, his voice low and shaking. "Lauren, she's not who you think she is." I almost laughed. "You think I don't know that now?" But he was silent, and then he whispered, "She's been blackmailing me. 4 months." I sat down on the edge of the bed, my mind racing. "You're lying." "I swear to God, Lauren, she threatened to send pictures to you, to your family, to the barber shop if I didn't pay her." Pictures. My stomach dropped, because deep down, I knew Marcus was messy, but Tiffany was calculated. She was always taking pictures at the booth, selfies with customers, photos of candles for her page. And then I remembered that one afternoon when Marcus dropped off lunch at the market and Tiffany had insisted on taking a photo of the three of us, for memories. She posted it, tagging me and him. What if that wasn't the only photo? Why would she do that, Marcus? I hissed, holding the phone so tightly my knuckles turned white. "Because she said she'd ruin you if I didn't pay her." Me. Not him. Me. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the floor in the dark, holding May, whispering to her that I would protect her no matter what. By morning, I decided to find out what Tiffany had. I texted her, "We need to talk. Come by." She showed up that afternoon, sunglasses hiding her red eyes, a shaky smile on her lips. "Hey, sis." I let her in. She sat on the couch, and for a moment, it felt like nothing had changed, like we were two tired mothers sharing a moment of quiet. But I wasn't here for comfort. "What do you have on me?" I asked. She looked up, startled. "What?" "I know you've been blackmailing Marcus." "So what do you have on me?" Her lips trembled, and I saw fear in her eyes for the first time. "Lauren, I didn't want to." "Show me." She pulled out her phone, scrolling, her hands shaking. She turned it to me, and I saw a folder named Insurance. Inside were photos of me counting cash from the stand, screenshots of my private messages with my supplier discussing under-the-table transactions, a video of me in the back of my booth handing an envelope of cash to a local farmer who sometimes provided me herbs without paperwork. It was enough to ruin my business. Enough to get me audited. Enough to have my stand shut down and my ability to adopt May questioned. "Why?" I asked, tears burning my eyes. Tiffany broke. "Because you have everything, Lauren. You have the husband, the baby, the business, the friends, the customers. I'm drowning, and everyone thinks I'm the problem, but I'm just trying to keep my son fed." I didn't say a word. I let her cry, watching the tears smear her mascara, the desperation clawing at her. But I wasn't the woman who would pity her anymore. She wiped her face, whispering, "I just wanted help, and Marcus, he kept telling me he'd leave you, that he'd take care of me and Jaden, but he never did. And when I threatened to show you, he started paying." She looked up, her eyes pleading. "I just wanted help." "By ruining my life?" "You were living the life I wanted." The anger was sharp in my chest, but under it was something colder. A clarity that told me what I needed to do. "Delete it," I said. She hesitated. "Delete it now, or I will make sure you lose your son, your booth, and every chance you have left." She started crying again but opened the folder and began deleting the photos, one by one. "Now go to your cloud," I said. She hesitated. "Now." She opened her Google Photos, and I watched her delete the backups. When she finished, she looked up, eyes swollen. "Please, Lauren. Please." I stood up. "Leave." She left, and I locked the door behind her. That night, I sat with Marcus in a cheap diner, the kind we used to go to when we were young and broke, before betrayal and lies became part of our daily routine. He looked at me, his eyes empty, his body smaller than I remembered. "I'm sorry," he said. I didn't respond. "What now?" he asked. I sipped my coffee, the bitterness grounding me. "You're going to sign over everything," I said. "The business, the accounts, the car. Everything." He swallowed, tears in his eyes. "And you're going to leave," I said. "Where will I go?" I looked him dead in the eye. "That's not my problem anymore." He nodded, defeated. "I loved you," he whispered. "I know," I said, standing up. "And you ruined it." He didn't follow me out. As I drove home, I felt lighter than I had in months, but I knew it wasn't over. Because that night, as I put May to bed, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "Lauren, you think you won. But you don't know what Tiffany really did. Call me if you want to keep your daughter." There was a video attached. I pressed play. It was Tiffany, holding May at the booth, whispering into the camera with a smile. "This is just in case. Just remember, Lauren. I always get what I want." And that's when I realized. Tiffany wasn't done. And now, she was coming for the one thing I would burn the world down to protect. My daughter. I watched the video on my phone, the one Tiffany sent, over and over until my hands shook. Tiffany was holding my daughter, May, at the farmer's market, rocking her gently as she whispered into the camera with that fake sweet smile. "This is just in case. Just remember, Lauren. I always get what I want. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in the dark, May asleep in her crib, her tiny breaths the only thing reminding me I had something left to fight for. She had taken my trust. She had taken my money. She had taken my husband. And now, Tiffany was threatening the only thing that mattered. My daughter. That's when I realized something deep in my bones. I had tried to be measured in my revenge. Precise. Controlled. But that was over. Now, I was going to burn everything down. And I was going to make sure Tiffany watched while I did it. The next morning, I made my calls. First, I called my lawyer and moved forward with freezing every single joint asset Marcus had. I'd already filed for separation, but I accelerated it, requesting an emergency hearing to protect May and myself, using the video Tiffany had sent as evidence of an unstable environment around my child. Then, I called Child Protective Services anonymously, giving them Tiffany's address and reporting suspected child neglect. I knew it would trigger a visit, and if you think that's too far, you've never held your child at night wondering if someone you trusted was planning to use them as leverage. Next, I visited Tiffany's booth at the market. She was there, selling her candles with that tired smile, pretending everything was fine. I stood in front of her table, calmly picking up a lavender candle, rolling it in my hand as she looked up and forced a smile. "Hi, sis." I placed the candle down and looked her dead in the eyes. "Don't ever call me that again." She froze. "I saw the video, Tiffany." She opened her mouth, but I cut her off. "You think you're smart, don't you? But you're sloppy. You're careless. And you messed with the wrong mother." She glanced around, seeing customers watching, but I didn't care. "Remember when I told you I'd destroy you if you ever crossed me? That starts now." Her face paled. "Lauren, wait." "I'm not waiting anymore." And I walked away, leaving her there as the panic spread across her face. When I got home, I opened the file I'd been collecting on Tiffany since this started. Screenshots of her threatening texts to Marcus, the payments she received, the business loans she never paid back, the recorded conversations where she admitted to knowing he was married but wanted him anyway. I took all of it to the police, filing a harassment and extortion complaint. I also sent the same packet to the IRS, attaching Tiffany's real name, business name, and photos of the cash-only transactions she bragged about at the market, the under-the-table deals she made to avoid taxes, the fake charity donations she posted online to look good while funneling money for herself. And then, I did the last thing that broke whatever power Tiffany thought she had left. I went to see her baby's father, Jamal. I found him outside his auto shop, leaning against a car, wiping oil from his hands. "You don't know me, but I'm Lauren." He frowned. "Tiffany's friend?" "Not anymore," I said. And I told him everything. About Marcus. About the money. About the threats. About how she was using their son to manipulate others. At first, he was angry at me. Then he was angry at her. "I've been trying to get custody," he said quietly. "She makes me look like the bad guy." "She's unstable," I said. "You need to protect your son." He nodded. And I left him with the same packet I gave the police. That night, Marcus showed up at the house, knocking until I answered. He looked like a ghost, unshaven, eyes sunken. "What did you do?" he demanded. "I ended it," I said. "She's calling me, crying, saying you're trying to ruin her life." "I'm not trying, Marcus." "I am." He ran his hands over his head, pacing. "Lauren, this is too far." "Too far?" I snapped. "You think I don't know about the other women? The money you stole from our account to pay Tiffany's rent while lying to me about barbershop inventory? You think I don't know about the way you let her hold our daughter while texting her about how you loved her?" His mouth opened, but nothing came out. "You made your choices, Marcus. Now live with them." He collapsed into a chair, crying. "Do you still love me?" he whispered. I looked at him, the man I once trusted with everything, and felt nothing. No. Over the next few weeks, everything started to fall apart for Tiffany. The IRS audit froze her accounts. Child Protective Services visited her home, questioning her about her environment and her income. Jamal filed for emergency custody, armed with evidence that Tiffany was unstable and financially reckless. The police opened an investigation into her for extortion and harassment. And the boutique supplier I connected her to? My cousin. She cut ties with Tiffany, leaving her without inventory to sell. Her candle booth at the market shut down within weeks. I saw her once, sitting in her car outside the market, her head on the steering wheel, crying. I didn't feel sorry for her. She took my kindness and turned it into a weapon. She took my family and tried to destroy it. She took my trust and shattered it. She took my child's safety and threatened it. Now, she had nothing left. Marcus moved out quietly, leaving behind his keys and a signed document transferring everything to me, the car, the savings, the remaining business account he could salvage. He would have to deal with the IRS alone, and I made it clear I would testify if needed. I changed the locks the day he left. That night, I stood in my kitchen, making May a bottle, the quiet of the house wrapping around me like a warm blanket. For the first time in years, I felt safe. I felt in control. I felt free. Months later, I saw Tiffany at a gas station. She was pumping gas into a beat-up sedan, her son in the back seat, looking tired and older than I remembered. She turned and saw me, her eyes wide. I got out of my car, May on my hip, and walked over to her. Lauren, she whispered. She looked thin, exhausted, her clothes worn. I just want you to know, she said, her voice shaking, you ruined my life. I looked at her, then at her son, then back at her. No, Tiffany, I said. You ruined your own life when you betrayed the only person who was ever on your side. Tears filled her eyes, but I didn't care. I turned and walked back to my car, buckling May into her seat as Tiffany stood there, crying at the pump. I drove away, the sun setting behind me, May giggling in the back seat, her chubby hands clapping. And in that moment, I realized what true revenge feels like. It's not loud. It's not messy. It's quiet. It's final. It's knowing you took back your power from those who tried to destroy you. And it's knowing they will never be able to touch you again. Today, my business is thriving. I expanded online, using what I learned to grow beyond the farmer's market. I pay my taxes. I keep my books clean. I hold my daughter close every night, knowing she's safe. Marcus? He's working at a different barber shop, living in a one-bedroom apartment, trying to get his life back together. Tiffany? She moved out of Atlanta, from what I heard, living with her mother, trying to keep custody of her son. They're both alive, but they're living in the ashes of what they tried to build on my back. And me? I'm alive. I'm stronger. I'm free. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's this. If someone calls you sis while texting your husband sugar, make sure they understand exactly what it means to play with a mother's heart. Because some of us don't just get mad. We get even. And we make sure it burns. Thank you for spending your time with my story. Feel free to share your thoughts or reactions in the comments, I'd love to hear from you.